The internet completely changed the world. But how has that impacted professional services? It made information free, but aren't professional services folks like you and I, aren't we kind of in the business of selling information? What does that mean for me? Think of it this way. These days, information is free, but implementation is paid. And it means I can put free information out into the world as a means of attracting people to what I do. Not another marketing video. This guy stinks. Because this free information, it's how people learn these days. Social media, YouTube. Like it or not, people are learning by scrolling. And if you're not there, they're gonna go out and learn from someone else. Sound familiar? Hey, check out this TikTok advice I found. And while we don't all need more clients, every single one of us needs better clients. Because this whole hustle of running an accounting firm can be boiled down to just this. How do I find the next client who will pay 1.5x what my clients pay now because they super value what I do? I take on that client, I cut 2 clients. The whole game is really as simple as that. And it's why you have to market what you do. Boo! I don't like it any more than you do. I just wanted to be an accountant. But if the thing that's gonna get you home in time for dinner is better paying clients, let's find a version of this that works for you, a version that you enjoy. And the biggest mindset shift I think we all need to start having is to come further down the value ladder. Being okay giving away value, something really low on that value ladder, something that's free or a tiny product. Because right now, most of our websites just say, here is this high bar for what it costs to work with us. Either make this big, dramatic, risky decision, or you're not on the list. But instead, we want to extend an olive branch to say, hey, here's a really valuable thing that you can have for free. And it's gonna give them just a taste of what it is like to work with you. So let me give you 5 reasons for why you should develop this free asset for potential clients. Number 1, because the first taste is always free. This is how they've done it for eons. I mean, there's a reason drug dealers have always done it this way. Just to get really tactical about this, think about the number of people that come to your website or look at your social media profile. And they look at it and they're like, and then they bounce. Never to be seen or heard from again. The problem is when the only call to action on your website is become a client, that's an extremely high bar. That is a risky, expensive, stress-inducing call to action. But if instead it's about, here's something I can do for you, rather than, well, here's the only way that you can do something for me and work with my firm. If instead there's something here that I can do for you, and you can grab it, and all you gotta do is give me your email address. Imagine how many of those people that are just walking by your website every single day, imagine how many of them you're gonna get that email address from. You got a little hook in them that you wouldn't have otherwise had. Number 2, it de-risks you for the potential customer. That potential client, they don't know anything about you. They may not be in love with their current provider, but they don't know anything more about you that's gonna lead them to believe that you are better, unless you can give them a taste, okay? Unless you put something out there and they're like, man, the guy I got right now, he never would have done this, or he's never given me that useful tidbit. It also can humanize you, because if all there is an orange button that says, book a call, if you can give them something where they build a little bit of a relationship with you, so the notion of meeting that stranger is a little less spooky, or maybe they've even seen you, and they know when I book here, I'm gonna talk with the same person, you're breaking down some barriers there, right? And honestly, the whole reason we wanna do this, have this free resource, is to just get that itty bitty hook into them, to get them on a list. Because you don't walk up to somebody when you first meet them and are like, hey, you wanna get married? That's just not realistic. For most people, it's going to take like a preponderance of proof that you are a better solution for them, and that takes time to build. Think about this, a loyal client who will stick with you for a long time, what's gonna cause them to change? Probably a bunch of their peers saying like, no, here's a better option. The client who's literally like scrolling through accounting firm landing pages that say peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind, and then making a decision based on that, those people are in a desperate spot. Like, I actually can't imagine making a buying decision that way. They're in a tight spot, and in all likelihood, those aren't gonna be great clients if they're in that spot. You will actually attract a higher quality client if you have convinced them that you are a fit by giving them value. Because those clients won't just be sold by a generic landing page. Now, we're not email marketers, but some very basic things we can do here once we got them on a list. The more qualifying information you know about them when they get on that list, the better. And I'm gonna send them like, maybe a 3 email drip campaign that's like, oh, you're a beekeeper. I got this thing that's gonna be super helpful for you. Here are the 3 things most beekeepers get wrong. Here's a chart of accounts template, whatever. Give them a little bit of value in a very specific way, and now you've got their email, where otherwise they would have just bounced from your website and you never would have talked to them again. And you've built some trust with them, increasing the likelihood they will come back and buy from you again, and actually increasing the perceived value of you in their eyes, if they do come back to buy from you. Okay, number 4 reason why we need to give them something useful, because oftentimes they can't change accountants right now. We forget about this. If a client has a project like midstream with another accountant, they're not shopping for an accountant, most likely. They may be like, oh yeah, I should circle back to this later because I'm not super happy with the person I have now, but we still got that tax return we gotta get out. We've got all these things we can't change right now. There are very specific windows in the year where somebody stumbling into you could actually lead to them changing accountants. And we can actually probably guess when those are. We definitely know sometimes are better than others, but if you got their email, you can be really selective about when you send them things of value to increase the likelihood that you're catching them at the right time when they could make the jump. We're about to get to a big deadline where if you do tax stuff, you gotta be leading into proactive tax planning. It is a great time to send an email to say, here's the 5 things every beekeeper needs to be thinking about as we get into tax planning season. Here's a DIY version, or you can engage us to do an even more comprehensive version for you. But I can only do that if I got their email. And they're only gonna give me their email if I had something free of value that I could give them in return. Otherwise, they just came to your site and bounced. And then number 5, to boost all of your marketing efforts. Have you ever tried to do social media or a rebrand on the webpage and you're like, man, why is this just not converting? Problem is because the call to action, if the only option there is to become a full-blown client, that is too high a bar of a call to action. So if you're posting on social media and the only thing somebody can do with that is to go and then become a client, that's a massive gap in value. Like if you think about the value ladder of all the things that your firm could do, at the bottom is free stuff. At the top is extremely expensive selective stuff with only a few clients. In the middle is tax prep, month-end close, and all that. Most firms aren't going far enough on the top end of that value ladder and at the bottom end of that value ladder. In fact, you'll actually notice there's a lot of bigger firms up market who pump a ton of investment into the bottom of that value ladder. There may be a really high bar, like a big cost bar to even begin work with that firm, but many of those firms go lower on the value ladder than many of us do. And this is because it gets more people into your pipeline. You get an email address, you get some way to follow up with them. Not because they're your dream client today, but because if you don't give them any small thing of value, then those people just come and go, and you never get them back. Now, I know the obvious question is, what would I even give them? What is the valuable thing? 4 quick thoughts on the format of that asset. The ad guy's here. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Scooter. Who wants a marketing idea that always converts? Okay. Tax savings, baby. With this video sponsor, CoreV, who has over 1,500 tax saving strategies. 1,500? 1,500 to make your tax advisory practice as turnkey and profitable as possible. Wait just 1 minute, Scooter. 1,500 things? This has got to be little things like set up an accountable plan or just the stuff that tax pros just know and do. You know what, Jason? You're absolutely right. But you know why CoreV's valuable? Because you suck at communicating your value. Hey, you may just save that client a whole pile of tax with your ingenious saving strategies, but how did you communicate that value to the client? Well, the software has columns. It's got, there's a base scenario. Yeah, but it's so ugly I don't even send it to them. I usually just send them an email. Oh, cool. So you just deployed years of tax expertise. You may have just pulled off a double Dutch triple Salchow to defer a whole pile of tax. And now to show for it, you've got, I just sent them the vouchers. Shut up and listen to me. This is why you need CoreV, okay? It's gonna help you find tax strategies for your clients, but the real value, communicating your value to those clients. With great reports that show the savings you're getting clients, cumulative year-over-year savings, unified reports across their personal and entities, putting it all into a language your client can understand. So you can charge top dollar for your tax advisory work because those reports that your tax software, those ones? Exactly, okay? Now go take CoreV for a spin. You're never gonna sell tax advisory work the same way again. Link down in the video description. Okay, 4 quick thoughts on what the format of that free thing ought to be. First, start with a PDF. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. What is the juiciest report you could put out for your dream customer? Not the customer that you have today, but your dream next customer, because that is how a better firm is built, one customer at a time. What is the most valuable thing you could put out for them? I can tell you from my audience, which is small firm owners, it is something like 4 steps to build the right practice management system for your firm. There's no more important piece of software in your accounting firm than the PM, right? You're like, okay, yes, I have this existential dread of having choose the wrong system. If this could get me to a place where I don't have stress over using the wrong one anymore, that's valuable. So for my audience, small accounting firms, that's a killer report to put out where somebody's gonna stop and be like, I will happily give you my email address if this will help me to sleep better at night about picking the right PM. There's a version of that for your dream customer. And if you haven't found it yet, that's fine. And you're probably not gonna get it right on your first try, but that's what we want this free asset to be. We want it to be irresistible. And then when they see it's from an accounting firm, they're gonna be like, oh, that's interesting and actually smart from an accounting firm. Number two, if you can, try to tell a story. To do two things. One, to start building a bit of a relationship with you, like as an actual human being, not this like faceless person online. But two, because if we can tell a story, it boosts the value of the thing that we are giving them. Like, what is the pain? What was the journey to get to this lesson? So for example, I could put up a report for accountants that says like, here's how to pick your PM. Or I can frame that with a story, which is a true story, that I spent 18 months deciding on a practice management system, migrating a 40-person firm to it. I mean, we spent months of people's time, probably well over 100 grand, on moving this big ship to a new PM, and we got 3 months in and we realized we've made the wrong decision. And we made that decision based on what the sales people told us. How idiotic is that? Making a big decision like that based on what a commissioned salesperson will tell you. Now I have to start that process over again to go to a different system. Do I do that now? Do I wait a year? Do I wait 2 years when everybody's got their energy up? That cost me, probably 2 or 3 years of productivity. But what would you say if in the next 5 minutes, I could give you something that ensured that you didn't make the same mistake that I did? That's the story. That's how you frame what you're doing in a way that makes it 10 times more valuable, right? And along the way, they just connected with you on that story. That's a true story, by the way. And if you follow me on social, that's actually something we're working on. We're gonna have out in the next few weeks. Okay, thought number 3, keep it bite-sized. When we are putting something out in the world or giving something away, we have to resist the urge to like pour everything that we know into it and make it this huge valuable thing. Oftentimes, if you're trying to ensure that something's valuable for somebody, we will make it more and more and more. But this actually creates friction to someone consuming it. I would rather have a transformation in 30 minutes than a transformation in a 7-day workshop, right? So it's the most concise way that we can get them there. Otherwise, it's gonna create friction. Last, be sure that it is anchored to a very specific pain. So much of what we talk about on this channel comes back to specificity, about finding a very specific pain that a certain client avatar has and solving that because they will pay top dollar for that. It will eliminate substitutes if nobody else is talking about that very specific pain. And that's how you find that client that will pay you 1.5x your current clients and let you cut 2 projects in favor of that one new one. So ensure that that thing is talking about a very specific pain, because that's actually how the internet works these days, is around specificity. Algorithms are very good at finding people with very specific interests. When I post something about running small firms, the only people that see it are people that run small firms. There's not a truck driver that's gonna be scrolling through their feed and see something from me. But if I talked about small business advice, you would have never heard from me. And it's that specificity that has made what I do valuable. We're sitting here on a 20,000 subscriber YouTube channel. That is microscopic. But I would argue we're doing some really cool, really impactful things for the accounting profession because of that specificity. So if you want that thing that you make to convert and to be valuable, it's gotta be really specific. Don't tell them how to read a balance sheet or a P&L. Tell them the things that a beekeeper needs to look at on a P&L. Don't tell them the tax deadlines to look out for. Tell them how tax payment deadlines bump up against cash flow cyclicality in a beekeeping business, if that's like a seasonal thing. Get specific, and the more painful that is, like the PM thing we're talking about, like that's such a painful thing for us, right? The more specific that pain is, the more valuable it'll be. Now, your mind may have already fired on something where you're like, oh my gosh, I know what I'm gonna do. Or you might still be thinking about it. Maybe you're like, I'm not quite sure what that looks like. Tomorrow on my podcast that we run every single day, I'm gonna run through a whole bunch of different frameworks that you could swipe, whether you run a tax firm or an accounting firm, reframe it for your specific customer, and you're gonna come out of that podcast episode with a few good ideas for things that you could give away to your clients, build a bit of a relationship with them, and get an email from someone who would otherwise have just bounced from your social media or your website. That's happening tomorrow. Most of you, tomorrow has probably already passed for most of you. I'm just gonna link that podcast. Here it is, unless you're watching this the day this came out. And if you are, bless your heart. Otherwise, here's that podcast. Bye.